found to be that value right there. And in this case, they didn't round it, they just put the whole thing, and they ask you what the coefficient of determination is. So you do r squared, you would just in your calculator do 0.9005918 and square it, that's going to be your r squared. But you won't have to do this one usually, unless they write it like this where they tell you what the r is. I mean, then you might have to square it, but usually, if you can find r, you'd just be putting it in your calculator anyway, so then you can just get the r squared without having to do this extra step. So here we get 0.811. Usually they round it to 3 decimal places for this one. So that's going to be part A, that's the coefficient of determination. You're just going to leave it as a decimal for that one. When they ask you on the homework, what's the coefficient of determination, you'll put 0.811. And then the second part they'll ask you is how much of the variation is explained by the least squares regression line. That's the same thing as your coefficient of determination, but this one they want you to write it as a percent. So when they ask you how much variation, you're going to write it as a percent. So you're going to take your answer for part A, your coefficient of determination, and you're going to move the decimal over 2 places, and you're going to get 81.1%. So they'll ask you, there'll be 2 parts to these questions. The first one, you're just going to leave it as a decimal, whatever decimal you happen to see in your calculator. And then for part B, they ask you, they want it to be a percent, so you just move the decimal over because the amount that's explained by the least squares regression line is the same thing as r squared. So that's my housing example. I've got my drilling example. I think I still have that. Great. So my drilling example is still in my L1 and my L2. So to find and interpret the coefficient of determination for my drilling data, I first need to figure it out. So I'll go to Stat, Calc, down to number 4 for linear regression, hit enter. Same thing that I did for 4.1 and 4.2 to find my correlation coefficient and my least squares regression line, but now I'm going to look at my r squared. So they tell me r squared is 0.597. So when I write this out, my correlation coefficient r squared, 0.597. So in your homework, that'll be the first answer. Type it in as a decimal. And then from there, for your second part where you interpret it, you're going to move this decimal over right there. And we'll say that, so this is part A from your homework. And then for part B, it's going to be a fill in the blank where they supply you with a word. You don't have to actually type it in. But so we'll say 59.7% of the variation. Oh, and they do have you do this. Is going to be a drop-down menu. I forgot about this. Of the variation of the, and then it's always going to be the y value. So up here they said selling price. Your selling price was your y value. I don't have anything listed. Here we go. So if I look at my y value, it's going to be the time to drill. So down here, when you say the variation of the time to drill, it's time to to drill is explained by the least squares regression line. So this part right here drill. This is going to be a drop-down menu, and you're always going to want to select the y variable. Again, with this one, we're looking at the up and down, how much your y is varying, not your x's. We don't care about that. So when you have this on the homework, r squared, you'll type in 0.597. You'll change it to a percent, and then this you'll have to type in for part B. And you'll also have to come over here and do a drop-down menu, and you've got your x variable and your y variable listed. You'll always select the y variable on this one because that's what we're looking at the variation for. So the last thing we're going to talk about in this section is an influential observation. So I'm going to define it as an influential